Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. In the quiet town of Fairview, nestled between rolling hills and thick woodlands, the darkness came with a heavy fall. This unassuming place, known for its tight-knit community and friendly faces, was suddenly thrust into a maelstrom of fear and suspicion when a local girl went missing. 16-year-old Lily Harper was adored by her peers. A straight-A student with dreams of becoming an environmental scientist. She had recently taken to spending her afternoons volunteering at the nearby nature preserve. On a brisk autumn afternoon, she was last seen leaving her home, her backpack slung over her shoulder, a sun hat perched atop her dark curls. That day the air was rich with the scent of fallen leaves and pine needles, but it would soon be steeped in dread. As twilight fell, her mother, Sarah, first sensed something was amiss. When Lily failed to return home, Sarah's heart sank. Calls to her friends yielded no answers. No one had seen her since that morning. Panic surged through her as she dialed the police. Officers arrived swiftly, but were met with a calm facade from the locals, masking the undercurrent of fear that had begun to ripple through the community. Days turned into nights as search parties combed through the expansive woods lining Fairview. The news spread like wildfire, causing an outpouring of support, but also paranoia. Whispers surfaced about the hidden dangers that could lurk in the shed. The town, once a bastion of safety, was now a stage set for a tragedy in the making. As investigators organized search efforts, the haunting question lingered. Would they find Lily alive? The clock was ticking, and with every passing hour, the hope dwindled further into the night. The victim. Lily Harper was the type of girl who could light up a room. With a quick laugh and a kind heart, she was known not only for her academic achievements, but also her effortless charm. Born and raised in Fairview, she had lived a life steeped in a seemingly ordinary rhythm-making with her mother, playing soccer with friends, and volunteering at the nature preserve. Her passion for the environment was palpable. She had a small garden in her backyard, filled with native flowers and vegetables, which flourished under her dedicated care. But to truly understand Lily, one had to look beyond her accomplishments. For her, the world was filled with possibilities waiting to be explored. She often spoke of dreams woven by late-night conversations with her friends, asking them to envision a future where she would make headlines for discovering a new species or advocating for climate change. Her friends admired not just her aspirations, but also the depth of her empathy. They often joked that Lee had a knack for reading emotions, sensing when someone was down, and dedicating her time to lift their spirits. That was why, when Lily went missing, the response from the community was overwhelming. Posters adorned every lamppost and bulletin board, her smile emblazoned on every surface as people gathered, sharing memories of her compassionate acts. The local coffee shop offered free drinks for anyone who assisted in the search, and local schools organized rallies to keep her name alive. However, as days passed without a trace, those closest to her started grappling with the grim realities of her absence. Sarah, her mother, struggled to maintain a semblance of normalcy, her fingers constantly tapping the edges of her kitchen tablet, a nervous habit that betrayed her internal turmoil. The conversations around town shifted subtly, leaving room for speculation. Who could have taken Lily? And why? Questions loomed large, painting a darker picture of their once quiet community, illuminating the cracks that fear had begun to wipe. the crime scene. As the sun rose on the 5th day of Lily Harper's disappearance, the air was thick with tension. The police had combed through the woods repeatedly, but it wasn't until a determined group of volunteers ventured deeper into the heart of the forest that they stumbled upon something chilling. A small clearing, almost hidden from sight, where the ground was disturbed and unearthed. At first glance, the clearing seemed innocuous, a simple patch of land scattered with autumn leaves and wildflowers. But the unnatural scatter of soil caught the attention of the searchers. They called it in. The police arrived shortly after, their faces betraying a mix of hope and dread. Officer Miller, a seasoned detective who had seen more than his share of tragedies, felt an unsettling heaviness weighing on it. The team cordoned off the area, ropes strung up like barriers to keep the growing crowd at bay. Flashing blue lights reflected off the trees, illuminating an unsettling sight. A single dark footprint near the edge of the clearing. Its deep impression suggested it was made mere hours before the discovery. As forensic teams began their work, the air filled with the antiseptic scent of cleaning chemicals and the electric buzz of anticipation. Amidst the digging and probing, a small silver locket was uncovered. Its surface was coated in grime, but it bore an unmistakable engraving of the tiny tree lily's favorite symbol of life and growth. Officer Miller's heart raced. He recognized it immediately from a family photo. He felt the mounting pressure had they found the first real clue. Or was it merely an echo of the girl they were desperately trying to find? The search finally seemed to pivot. The whispers of fear evolved into a crescendo of concern as they began to piece together a time-linear timeline that no longer revolved around a sweet, innocent girl, but perhaps something darker, something sinister. The facade of their small town cracked under the weight of a chilling reality that someone among them held the answers to Lily's fate. The eerie investigation. With the locket now a central piece of evidence, Officer Miller and his team hastily expanded their investigation beyond the immediate area of the clearing. Days previously filled with hope now turned grim, the word abduction lurking behind every hushed conversation. They focused on the hours leading up to Lily's disappearance, retracing her last known movements, while canvassing the neighborhood for witnesses. The quiet hum of Fairview was punctuated by the urgent buzz of cell phones and the rustle of paper as the police interviewed community members, asking each person about sightings, interactions, or anything unusual that could shed light on Lily's last day. One by one, they shared fragments of information. A neighbor reported seeing Lily talking animatedly with a boy from school known for his erratic behavior. Another mentioned hearing muffled shouts coming from a nearby path Sunday evening. But the chilling words went unsaid. "I thought it was just kids' play." As interviews continued, Officer Miller faced the growing anxiety among the townsfolk. Rumors festered like an untreated wound, with whispers hinting at a stranger lurking in the shadows somewhere who didn't belong. Social media surged with theories. Safety forums became battlegrounds of speculation. He understood the value of community vigilance, but now it felt like chaos was settling where order had existed. Working late into the night, Miller reviewed security footage from nearby homes. His eyes strained as they scanned each frame, meticulously for clues. He spotted Lily's figure walking down Main Street, with a slender silhouette beside her around the time she vanished, the same boy who had been seen conversing with her. The anxiety in his chest deepened. They needed him. The boy was quickly tracked down, his pale face radiating confusion mixed with fear. Yet it was the look in his eyes that worried Miller most. A flicker of something unnameable hiding beneath the surface. Was he a witness? Or was he carrying a seed? Miller knew the next steps could lead them closer to Lily, or plunge them deeper into the darkness. The clock was ticking, and every moment spent unearthing that cost them everything. The dead ends. The investigation, once thriving with hope and activity, began to feel like a maze of dashed expectations. Officer Miller sat in the dim light of the precinct, surrounded by crumbled papers and empty coffee cups, each representing leads that had led the team astray. They had interrogated the boy seen with Lily multiple times, his alibi held up, but his demeanor raised questions. He seemed young, perhaps naive, but Miller couldn't shake the sense that he was concealing something. Meanwhile, the forensic team processed the locket, but it revealed no new information. DNA testing was ongoing, but time was not on their side. Local media coverage intensified, yet with every article published, the pressure mounted. As the public demanded answers, frustration simmered in the precinct. Miller could sense the tipping point. The town's unity was beginning to fray as fear hung in the air like a thick fog, impeding clarity. The police sought to interview Lily's friends again, but even the closest confidants struggled to recall anything unusual. In the days prior to her disappearance, memories that should have been vivid felt dulled, clouded by the collective trauma of the search. One girl whispered about Lily's frustration over a recent argument, a spat that seemed trivial in hindsight, but with every hint of conflict came new threads to pull, leading Miller down yet another twisting road that led nowhere. Outside, the seasons shifted. Autumn's vibrant colors began to wilt into the grayscale of winter. The shift mirrored the town's mood. Optimism dwindled alongside the leaves, and whispers of fear morphed into distrust, targeting one another in the name of safety. Siblings argued, friends separated in tension, and the once cozy gatherings turned into cold stares and hushed tones. Days turned into nights of repetitive routine. Miller felt trapped within his own mind, knowing that they needed a breakthrough, a sign that they were on the right track. But every promising lead had transformed into a dead end. He sank further into a vortex of frustration, yet resolute in the singular belief. Lily was still out there, and somewhere in this typing net of secrets lay the answers that would either save her or expose the shadows hiding in Fairview. A break in the case. As the first snowflakes began to fall in Fairview, coating the town in a chilling silence, Officer Miller received a call that shifted the momentum of the investigation. It was a tip from a waitress at the diner on the edge of town, who had heard the gossip swirling among patrons. On weekends, she often served a group of young men who were known to frequent the town for recreational stops. One of them had mentioned a girl missing, eerie conversation punctuated by laughter that felt too light for the heavy topic. Miller's heart raced as he hurried to the diner, the exhaust from his car mingling with the crisp winter air inside, the warmth wrapped around him, a stark contrast to the urgency in his chest. The waitress, a thin woman with dark circles under her eyes, led him to a booth where the group habitually gathered. He recalled their conversations, noting a particular name. Tyler had seemed too interested in Lily's case, almost gleeful, as if the unfolding drama was a sick form of entertainment. With the name in hand, Miller wasted no time seeking out Tyler's whereabouts. Early the next morning, he located him at his home on the outskirts of town. A decrepit house that seemed to scream secret. Miller knocked with purpose, the biting cold palpable even through his heavy coat. When Tyler opened the door, his bleary eyes darted nervously, the disheveled hair and trembling hands giving away his anxious demeanor. "What do you want?" Tyler's bravado cracked slightly. Apprehension lay just beneath his bravado. Miller introduced himself with authority, sensing the boy's reluctance to engage but pressing him with questions about his involvement and his conversations the previous weekend. Tyler fidgeted, avoiding eye contact, as his words tumbled out and a rush choppy explanations that spoke of idle chatter and things he had overheard. But as Miller pushed, the facade crumbled further. Tyler spilled the details of a confrontation he'd observed between Lily and a mysterious man in the woods. Describing the heated exchange, he mentioned seeing flashes of anger on the man's face, and Lily's tentative stance, a tension like a taut string pulled to its breaking point. Miller's heart raced. This was the first substantial lead, a potential connection to the darkness hidden beneath Fairview's surface. As he recorded every word, a new sense of hope surged within him, a flicker of light in the usually enveloping shadows. But they needed to move quickly. Time was elusive, and the snow began to fall heavier, blanketing the town, concealing the reality it could unearth Lily or further shroud her fate. The suspect, with Tyler's revelation burning in his mind, Officer Miller knew the next steps required careful precision. The name that had emerged in hushed whispers loomed larger than Shadow Luke Matthews, a recent transplant to Fairview known for his eccentric behavior and a history interwoven with borderline obsession. He was a local artist who had gone through well-publicized struggles with mental health, and rumors suggested that he had taken a particular interest in Lily. The sunlight had faded as Officer Miller strategized with his team, laying out a plan to approach Luke. The desk was littered with notes chronicling past sightings, interviews, and the increasingly eerie portrait of a man who seemed instead to fade into the background, yet remained ever present. They assembled their case, highlighting the tensions surrounding Lily and pulling threads through Tyler's account. Eventually, Miller decided to confront Luke at his art studio, a cramped space filled with macabre paintings that danced between beauty and horror, each canvas reflecting the inner turmoil that had birthed them. As he approached, the breeze carried the scent of turpentine and oil paint, mingled with something more unsettling, the feeling of being drawn into an uncharted territory. Inside, the atmosphere felt thick like the paint that coated the walls as strange shadows danced in the corners. Luke stood in front of a canvas, brush in hand, his long hair obscuring part of his face. He turned slowly, eyes sharp like pieces of glass, yet strangely vacant. He was aware of the intrusion but allowed it, his demeanor eerily calm. "Can I help you?" Luke asked, a hint of apprehension clawing at the edges of his voice. Miller introduced himself, gauging the artist's reactions as he directed questions about Lily, her frequent visits to the nature preserve, and whether he had seen her that fateful day. But what should have been innocent inquiries turned into a web of veiled responses and implications. Luke's gaze flitted away as he spoke of art and muses, intertwining them with statements about loss and desire. Each reply felt like a riddle, laced with menace, a performance rather than an honest conversation. Miller noticed the way his hands trembled slightly, the brush quivering as it met the canvas. It became clear that under the guise of creativity was a brooding obsession, sparked not just by admiration for her beauty, but fueled by a darker compulsion. Despite the carefully crafted facade, something instinctual led Miller to suspect Luke. He requested a more formal interview, hoping that time and the weight of scrutiny would crack the surface. As he left the studio, a vortex of anticipation and anxiety filled the air. They needed to gather more evidence, scrutinize his past, and see if there was a way to connect Luke to the growing pile of unexplained fragments surrounding Lily's disappearance. The walls of Fairview seemed to close in, and the weight of the impending confrontation was almost tangible, revealing the true nature of Luke Matthews could provide the breakthrough or plunge them deeper into despair. The trial. After weeks of frenetic investigation, mounting evidence, and the bruising weight of uncertainty, the day of the trial dawned bleak and gray, overshadowing the small town of Fairview. The courthouse, a modest building of brick and glass, stood as a stark reminder of the reality that had rippled through the community. Families once united were now fragmented by fear and loss, and the stakes felt impossibly high. As the court proceedings began, the tension in the air was palpable. Officer Miller sat at the front, his heart pounding as he watched familiar faces from the community fill the benches. Each member of the jury seemed to shift under the weight of expectations, the eyes of the townsfolk heavy upon them, longing for justice. Luke Matthews, the accused, sat stony-faced at the defendant's table, his demeanor unreadably an artist before a canvas that was his own fate. The prosecution opened, recounting Lily's last known moments, the heartbreak of her absence, and the unsettling confession made by Tyler. They laid out a timeline, interwoven with details of the clearing where Lily's locket was found, underscoring the gravity of the charges against Luke abduction and the potential for more sinister reality. The attorney crafted each statement with precision, allowing the emotional weight to punctuate the air, invoking the memories of a vibrant girl who vanished without a trace. As the trial unfolded, the defense sought to portray Luke as a misunderstood artist, arguing that his eccentricity was merely a byproduct of creativity, her facade masking the reality of a gentle soul rather than a heart steeped in malice. They painted a picture of mental health struggles, attempts to find solace in his art, intent on dismantling the image of a predator. Just as hope waned among those who gathered, a shocking twist came. A witness zone the prosecution hadn't anticipated stepped forward. A young woman who had been hiking in the area the day Lily disappeared. Her testimony described a confrontation she had witnessed, Lily arguing with a man whose description matched Luke's. The courtroom held its breath as she recalled the intensity of the moment, revealing details that were chillingly vivid, staking the claim that she had seen the colors of fear on Lily's face. The emotional atmosphere thickened, galvanizing the jury's resolve. Officer Miller felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was not just about convicting a man, but about restoring a sense of safety to a community that had unraveled in the hunt for truth. The trial dragged on, a winding road through emotion, testimony, and the darkest recesses of humanity. As the closing arguments echoed through the courtroom, Officer Miller understood that this moment could determine the fate of so many. Lives hung in the balance, not just for Luke, but for the townsfolk still grappling with fear. The final verdict would be a beacon of hope for some, or a continuing nightmare for others. In that room, the complexities of justice, grief, and truth converged, yet uncertainty lingered heavy, wrapping itself around everyone like the winter fog that had grown too familiar. The aftermath. The gavel struck sharply, echoing through the courtroom, the sound reverberating like a distant gunshot, marking the end of a long and grueling chapter in Fairview's history. The jury's verdict rang out a unanimous decision. Luke was found guilty of abduction and sentenced to 25 years in prison. While some in the courtroom wept tears of relief, others stood motionless, grappling with the bittersweet reality that justice had been served. Yet a profound loss lingered unaddressed. In the days that followed, the town of Fairview tried to reclaim a sense of normalcy. But the shadows of the past haunted the bustling streets. Signs declaring Find Lily slowly came down, replaced by banners insisting justice for Lily. But it wasn't enough to erase the pain entwined in the fabric of their community. Empty spaces where laughter had once resided echoed in conversations, and simple encounters felt laden with unspoken words. Sarah Harper, Lily's mother, found solace in painting. In the weeks after the trial, she began to transform the emptiness of her grief into beauty, creating a mural. In the center of the towel, each stroke of color reflected Lily's essence of vibrant greens for her love of nature, warm yellows for her infectious smile, and deep blues symbolizing the hopes that clung like dewdrops. On the edges of it became a tribute, a memorial, where townsfolk had come together. A space reserved for memories shared and healing begun. Meanwhile, Officer Miller wrestled with his own demons. The trial may have concluded, but the questions surrounding Lily's fate remained. What truly happened in those final moments? Had Luke acted alone? Or was there an unseen puppet master in the shadows? Conversations with other investigators struck a chord in his gut, echoing considerations of those angles that had yet to be explored. As the holidays approached, the weight of the past felt especially pronounced. A town divided struggled to come together, some feeling relief while others grappled with new fears. The tight-knit community seemed tragically to have developed a crack that might never fully heal. Those who had once shared carefree moments in parks and cafes now found themselves trapped under the unrelenting force of worry, watching their children with a protective eye and listening closely for any sign of trouble. On a particularly somber day, as the first snow blanketed the town, Officer Miller stood in front of Sarah's mural, lost in thought as he took in its surreal beauty. Then, just at the edge of his vision, he noticed a figure linger nearby a young boy from the diner, Tyler. He had come to pay his respects, clutching flowers, his eyes mirroring the guilt he could not shake up. Miller approached him, hoping to discuss the aftermath of the trial, to understand what remained unspoken between them. As they stood side by side, gazing at the mural under a blanket of white, they felt a small spark of hope ignite within the despair of recognition that life, while altered, could still be beautiful. Though Fairview was stained with the shadows of tragedy, perhaps together they could shape a new narrative, one that honored the memory of Lily Harper, while embracing the promise of a brighter future, however distant it felt. Reflection. Months had passed since the trial, but the ripples of Lily Harper's tragic story continued to churn through the fabric of Fairview. Officer Miller found himself often reflecting on innocence lost, wondering how such a bright light could be so abruptly extinguished. The mural Sarah had painted became a gathering place, a silent confession of grief, and a vital testament to the town's resilience. Each day, people would come to lay flowers, share stories and remember the girl who had touched their lives. Miller made it a ritual, visiting the mural often. It represented more than just Lily's memory. It was a symbol of the community's struggle against the darkness that had seeped into their lives. On these visits, he often spoke with Sarah, who, despite her loss, exuded a strength born only from profound heartbreak. They discussed the need for awareness surrounding mental health, understanding, and open conversation, the importance of recognizing warning signs that could prevent another tragedy. The boy, Tyler, would join them from time to time, becoming an unexpected cornerstone of their healing. With each visit, he brought stories of Lily that further painted her vibrant character. This connection became a healing avenue for all, allowing them to confront their grief while building bonds in the wake of loss.